Oh, are you recording right now?
Yeah,
I can hear it. Okay.
I just want to see if we can record at the same time.
Oh, yes. Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. Nope, wrong one. Let me stop real quick. Hold on. Which window is it? Okay, cool. We're just gonna do
And
this.
honestly, I don't even know because if I have to use my recording, I don't think you'll be able to see me.
Oh, really?
Because like I when I'm looking at this, I can see both of us,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was sharing my screen, I couldn't see me.
Oh, that's concerning.
So maybe we just both run through it again.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Now I'm concerned. Is that the issue people were having then?
Um,
You
where
were
you
seeing the
see both
notification.
people.
Like the ones that were posting, remember you were reading it?
Yeah, they were saying because apparently you have to make sure you're recording in gallery view, which I am.
Yeah, I am right now. Gallery. Yep. Okay, let me just pull up the stupid consent form again. Okay, I'll start again. All right.
I cannot believe this is happening.
I can't believe this is how you did such a good run through too, Mia. That sucks. I hate our lives. It's okay, we got this. Okay, okay. Hi, hello, welcome, Nina. Um, I'm Marisol. It's so nice to put a face to the name and share this virtual space with you. I know it sounds kind of silly, but any space is to share with,
Wait,
clients. Yeah, go ahead.
are you recording too?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure before we got into too deep into it. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. You're
Restart.
good. Yeah, I'll just edit it out. Okay. Hi, welcome.
Hi.
I'm Marisol. Hi, Nina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to put a face to the name and to get started with talking about informed consent. Um,
Okay.
yeah, how are you doing though?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous to get started, but I guess I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, totally valid, especially if maybe it's your first time or you've come back after a long time to counseling. Um, Very low stakes today. We're going to be talking about this form. Important stuff, but we're not going to be doing deep emotional work. So I'll try to make it palatable and understandable of sorts. And here it is a kind of a long document, but we'll get through it together. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions too. I'm all ears and open to answering any questions to the best of my ability. And if I don't know, I'll find out.
Sounds good.
Okay, so like I said before, this is the informed consent form, and really it's divided into subsections. And the first one starts out with the client counselor service agreement, essentially just highlighting that as a clinician in the agency I work for, we have to abide by what's called HIPAA. I'm sure you're familiar with it, you've heard it before. It's a federal law, essentially, that provides privacy to patients or clients or people receiving clinical services as well in healthcare. So it's pretty complex, but just know that your rights as a client to privacy and confidentiality are protected under HIPAA. Additionally, it just kind of, there's a little blurb there that explains counseling. It's really a partnership. I would think of it like that. I'm here to support you. You're the captain of the ship, and think of me as the crew. I am here to support you in the ways that you need. So you're the expert here on your life. Really, I'm just like a supporting character, I'll say it like that. So but as your clinician, there are limits that I have in my scope. There are also, rights and responsibilities that you have as a client, and we'll go into more depth about that going forward. So the goals of counseling, as I touched on before, because it's a relationship of sorts, of counseling with the client, a counselor with the client, we like to frame this relationship around long-term goals and shorter-term, more immediate goals. So longer-term goals can be something like, for example, that's listed here, is learning to live with more mindfulness or trying to implement grounding techniques maybe into your daily life. Others, more immediate goals might be mitigating or decreasing the symptoms of mental health struggles, maybe substance abuse for some individuals, just some examples. So whatever goals that you set, we'll be constantly working towards them, even though maybe it doesn't always feel super obvious and relevant, but that's what it'll be there for, and then it'll really factor into our treatment plan, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. Um, in the next section, risks and benefits of counseling. So, as I mentioned before, it's doing that deep emotional work, and sometimes unpleasant emotions and memories may come up. So, there's really no guarantee um, that my approach essentially to counseling or what we're trying to work on is going to necessarily get the result that you're hoping for. But I do want to remind you not to be discouraged because healing is so non-linear, which means it might feel like there's ups and there's downs and there's steps backs. There's a couple step backs and then there's steps forwards and then it's constantly in flux. That's completely normal. I'm really here to help you build that safety net so that you can build the skills to when you do have those setbacks, you can always take the three more forward and you know. So, in a nutshell, that's counseling, the benefits, or rather the risks, and how we try to mitigate those risks. As for the benefits, it can definitely help you develop coping skills and make progress on those goals that you had set before, whatever that may be, and what we outline in the treatment plan, and just in generally improve the quality of your life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned. It sounds like maybe counseling can make me worse. Do you think that that's something that can happen? I don't know about the taking steps back. Is it going to make me worse?
Yeah, so that's a really valid question, really important, right? Especially the way that it's phrased in our informed consent. Um, Really the goal is to help support you in strengthening skills or maybe developing skills that'll help you essentially progress towards those goals. So ultimately, you get what you put into it, and I am here to help you create that foundation. It'll never be a like I'm leaving you high and dry, or you don't know where to go if there's a service that you feel like better fits your needs. But I'm really here to meet you halfway, essentially. And I know the wording's a little scary there, but don't be misled by that. It's more so of a working type of relationship, and it's just it can feel discouraging sometimes, which is why we include that. But as long as you're willing to work on those things with me in this space, I'm here to work with you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Awesome. So now we can move on to appointments. These are more like practical, logistical things. Um, Really, they typically will be about an hour, give or take 10 minutes. Usually once a week, but it can be every 2 weeks. It really depends on what we agree upon together in the treatment plan, what works for you really, and what your preference is, along with the schedule that I currently have with other clients. We do ask that if you have to cancel or reschedule a session, you give us a 24-hour notice. If you don't, you may be required to pay for the session. Um, it's also important to note that insurances have their own policies on that. They do not provide reimbursement for canceled sessions, etc. So you will probably be responsible for that cancellation fee. If you are late, for example, let's say your session's at 5, you hop on at like 5:20. Even though you let me know you're running late because we have to stick to that schedule, and we have this policy, I would still need to end the session at 6, so your session would just be shorter. Does that make sense? Yep.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned with, having kids and, I only have one car between me and my husband, and I could see something coming up at the last minute, like one of my kids getting sick or something happening where maybe I can't give you that 24-hour notice. What happens then?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. We know that life happens. I know that life happens. We all know that it does. So there will be situations like you just said that it's maybe are a little bit more pressing, or if they're unexpected, rather is the word. So in those situations, it would be on a case by case, and I'd work with you to see, okay, if this was really, there was no way for you to give me 24-hour notice. You can't predict the future. This kind of just happened, like your tire blew out and you're late, Or, for example, your child's really sick, and it just you had to go pick them up from school and you didn't expect that. So that would be a case by case, and those scenarios assessed, and it might that would likely also result in you not having to reimburse, and we would just reschedule. Um, but if it does become like a reoccurring thing, like uh, and not so one-off, then that would be a conversation about you and I reassessing when our appointments are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it's good to know that you're willing to work with me on that because I know things come up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, okay, so we're gonna move on to confidentiality. So my priority as a clinician obviously is to be a support to help you work through emotions, yes, but because we're talking about such sensitive um, topics, and it's really personal and intimate, we have to also really prioritize confidentiality. So if you wish for your information to be released, you'll have to sign a consent form so that that information can be released. We do have limits to confidentiality. So in situations where I would have to break confidentiality without your consent would be if you share with me that you're a risk to yourself or to others. So I would have to report that. Or in cases of abuse of children or elderly, so that'd be physical violence, sexual violence, neglect. And that would be a call to DCS. And the for elderly, it's same thing, sexual, physical, and neglect. And it would also be a call up to APS. Um, Yes, so if I receive a court order as well or a subpoena, I also may be required to release that information. However, we assess it again case by case and make sure that we're not just releasing information, all of the information. We're redacting, we're only releasing what's absolutely necessary. So again, I just wanted you to be informed. This is a really important paragraph. Just make sure, I'm just making sure that all makes sense and that you have that info. Okay. And then in regards confidentiality in regards to group therapy. So we do have group therapy available at our agency. However, as great as it is, and a lot of people feel that it's a good fit for them because of the community aspect of it, will be transparent and it can be really difficult to maintain confidentiality. Um, if you do choose to be a part of a therapeutic group, I can't guarantee that confidentiality won't be broken. Again, we do a lot to reinforce that with every individual who participates, but everybody does have free will and they make decisions on their own. Just so you know, there are consequences for individuals that do break confidentiality that will likely result in them being removed from the group. Um, and we'll also give the option to the individual whose information was leaked to whether they would like to transition to a different group or transition back into just individual therapy. Uh, we want to make sure that everybody is still getting what they need, but we're respecting and enforcing confidentiality policy.
Okay, so was a little nervous about that with trusting other people to not share my information from group. But you're saying that, that person could, what, they might get kicked out?
Yeah, so they would likely it'd be a conversation with them, reminding them of the confidentiality and the importance of it, but it would also likely result in them being removed from that therapeutic group, potentially moved to another one, or transitioned as well back to just individual therapy. Um, because confidentiality is something that we take so seriously, and we want to make sure that everybody feels safe and welcomed and isn't constantly in fear that their information is going to be shared. Yeah.
Okay. I'll definitely think about it.
Okay. The next session, the TAC, so telemedicine, technology assisted counseling, consent policies and agreement. I know it sounds sterling, huh? So this information is really in addition to the consent for treatment and notice of privacy practices. So it goes over the benefits of doing telemedicine sessions. So you'll see there that it reduces the stigma of obtaining mental health services. So you're not physically going to the location, people aren't seeing you, etc. Um, it also is more convenient, so you don't have to travel to anywhere. There's no aspects of like having to plan out drive time is the word I was looking for. There's also, no waiting for like long periods of time to schedule out appointments, eliminates that, and then it increases accessibility for homebound individuals or individuals with disabilities and mobility concerns, or individuals without transportation or more, accommodating transportation options. So some of the limitations, though, are clinicians, myself, a counselor, we can't necessarily read your body language as well as if it was in person, which we're missing sometimes some of that. A lot of the times via um, video call, we'll be missing that aspect, nonverbal reactions. There's also limitations related to technology. We know that it fails sometimes and it's not always reliable. So we may need you to repeat things or there may be audio issues sometimes. We'll do our best to navigate that and not let it eat up your time. Technology also might fail during the session. Again, the same thing. We'll go over more detail what our protocol is if that does happen. So I won't go too much into detail now. Um, Although every effort is made to reduce confidentiality breaches, it's more, I would say, a little bit more likely to happen via video call just because we're most of the time in a homes at home where we share the space with others. Maybe sometimes you're talking about your relationship with others. They walk in or they can hear you through the wall. So things like that might happen, which we call it is technically a breach of confidentiality. Um, and then to reduce the effect of all the limitations I just talked about, we would likely encourage you to, or will encourage you in this space, myself, I will encourage you to describe how you're feeling, thinking, or acting in more detail than I would in person, just because we're missing all those factors of nonverbal and physical or body language. Something more logistic. I will email or text you when we are having a session. Um, yeah, I'll email or text you the link via any of these two, either of these two platforms that you see here. And we'll also encourage you to be in a private location, kind of focused and ready to go. And I will do the same. You know, expectation for you is the expectation for me as well. If you choose to be in a place with other people or other people that can hear you or in the same room, we cannot be held responsible for protecting your confidentiality. That is your choice then. Um, yeah, so it just kind of goes more into detail about the other instances where confidentiality may be a little bit compromised, but it is still within your circle of control, I would say. Okay, this is what I was referring to before. Connection loss during phone sessions. So, like I said, technology, we both know kind of can fail sometimes. So if our connection is lost during the phone session, I'll call you back immediately and continue to try at least 3 times. And I'll remain available for the duration, whatever how long we have left in our session, just in case, it was a matter of like my phone died. Let me hop on the video call with you on my laptop or vice versa. So you do have that option. Um, if it's something that's my fault or it's my connection that was cut, I'll try to call you from an alternate number. It may show up as restricted or blocked, so please be sure to answer and don't think it's too sketchy or anything. It is me trying to contact you. Um, Connection lost during video sessions. Similarly, I will try to re-engage you and troubleshoot the reason for connection. Again, we'll try so that it doesn't eat up your counseling time to while trying to navigate those tech issues. Um, but if it's on your end and sometimes I know that it's like a matter of, like we said before, Wi-Fi issues or your laptop's not functioning well. There's a possibility they still might be charged, but really it's a case by case. And we can discuss that if it does happen. It's not like how would I say, an absolute, like we were talking about before with the cancellation policy. So just know that. The next session, recording of sessions. It's pretty straightforward. It's not permitted in any shape, way, or form. Please don't do it. Yeah, and it could potentially result in the ending or the termination of our client therapist relationship. So in any capacity, please don't do it. Um, and then the intake specialist will collect the payment at the time of a session based on the fee agreement you already looked at. Again, just some logistics in state jurisdiction. So this section really addresses that I, as your counselor, am only licensed to practice telehealth in the state of Arizona, where I'm licensed, which means that you must be a primary resident of Arizona, resident, live here. Um, so it is your duty to inform me if you do move, because I cannot provide you those services if you move out of state. Okay. Cancellation policy is the next one, which we already kind of talked about above. So 24-hour notice, please, if possible. Otherwise, you can be held financially responsible for the session, the complete session. We would like the communication for the cancellation to be in writing, if possible. So email or text is my preference. But if phone call is the only option, that's okay. Just please leave me a text or a voicemail. So I know if it's a phone call and I didn't answer, because it's possible I might not be able to answer when you do call. I know what you're calling for. Um, if you are late, or unable to talk at the scheduled time, we already talked about it before, but depending on the situation, we could start late and end the session at the same time, just cutting your session down a little bit. Or we could always, if it's a really one-off situation when an emergency came up, try to reschedule for another time. Okay, emergencies and confidentiality. I feel like we're almost done. Bear with me. Uh, so in this section, I'm gonna ask you to fill out an emergency contact, and I would like for you to fill out the person's first and last name, relationship to you. Really, this is for if a situation occurs, like where you and I get disconnected, whether it's video call or phone call, and you're in crisis. Um, I would not only contact any of these listed resources, so the National Suicide Hotline or the crisis line, the Maricopa Crisis Line, or 911, depending on what you shared with me. Um, but also call your emergency contact to let them know because I can't physically be there with you, so I need to do my due diligence. Um, yeah. So please note that that's what the emergency contact is primarily for. And everything in the original consent for treatment you sign, including all the confidentiality exceptions, also applies to our video call. So which is why I gave that example at the beginning. Does that all make sense? That's a really important part.
Yep, I just went ahead and put my husband on there. He's the one I would say to call if anything happens. I give you permission.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so our consent to participate in TAC sessions. So by signing below, you agree that you have read and understand all the above sections of TAC informed consent, and you agree that you understand the limitations associated with participating in said sessions. So if you do, go ahead and fill it out. Awesome. As you're doing that, I'm going to move on to record keeping. Just so you know, I do keep records of our counseling sessions and every session I have with clients, and the treatment plan, which includes your goals for counseling. They're These records are kept to help keep me on track when I'm meeting with you, and help measure your progress as well. And they can always be, as well as treatment plan, be tweaked, etc. It's not something that's set in stone, but that's where it's kept, right? And that's why I keep them. Um, so there are, give me a second, I lost where I was. Oh, here I go. If you wish to have those records released, then I'll require a release of information, or an ROI as we call it, which specifies the information to be released and to who. You can always request to see your own as well. That's always within your client rights. Please know that we keep records at least 7 years, but sometimes a little longer. And we either keep them electronically or on a USB flash drive or in a paper file, sometimes every time, sorry, stored in a locked cabinet. But usually I would say it'll be electronically or on a USB. Professional fees. So I'm sure you already took your a look at this because you completed the intake, and um you're at this part of the process. But just know that you're responsible, just as a reminder, for paying at the time of your session unless prior arrangements have been made. If you are planning to participate or you anticipate being a part of a court case where my services were going to be required, you will be responsible for, or you rather, I will be requesting pay for the professional time that it's asking me for the court case if I'm needed. Otherwise, fees are non-negotiable, and then these are the fee schedules. So you can take a look at that if you haven't. I'm sure you have, but you have it there. As for insurance, that's most insurances provide some coverage for mental health treatment, but not all usually. So really what that means, sometimes um most of the time you'll be required to pay for a portion of your services. Um, and again, as we discussed above, you made those plans, arrangements, you understand them. If you don't, you can always ask the intake specialist. There will be times where I'm required to provide the insurance some clinical information, essentially justifying why they should continue to approve um covering your sessions. So I just want you to know that there's that. But again, I'm not going to release all the information, only what's absolutely necessary. And those things I will need your informed consent for as well. And this is really what that's dictating here or like laying out. And I will move forward. It's okay. Contacting your provider. If you try to contact me via phone call, more often than not, I won't be available just because sometimes, a lot of the time, I'm in back-to-back sessions. So I do ask that you leave a message on my confidential voicemail or you leave me a text is really the preferred um, way of I guess letting me know, hey, like I called you and this is what I was wanting, or can you call me back, please? If it's an emergency, if you can't or you need me to call back within a certain time frame, like an immediate one, um, always in emergencies, assess the situation. If you need to call a hospital, please go to the local hospital or call 911 or the crisis line. The last thing I want is that you're needing support and I'm unavailable and you just don't get that support. So okay, lastly, oh no, not yeah, lastly, here we go. We're at the end. Email. So, as a clinician, a lot of what we do, we use email here just because it's easier to encrypt. It's kind of more conducive to confidentiality rather. So you have the right though to refuse to provide me your email. Really what we do with that is that we use the email to sometimes follow up with clients that have suddenly ended therapy and just want to check in to see how they're doing. We send newsletters. We also provide therapeutic information like tips like coping skills or grounding skills, essentially resources. Um, Anything related to information for mental health and wellness. And yes, if you consent, please put your email right there. You beat me to it. Um, if you don't, there's an option as well, but I see you already. And then down here, if you understood everything that I said and you made it to this part, then you're gonna go ahead and type your name, sign it, and I will do the same. Uh, there we go. No, there we go. But as I mentioned, like I know I talked a lot already, but I mentioned that at some point, the next time we meet, we're going to be working on creating your treatment plan, but also doing your biopsychosocial. Well, really, what that is it's going to be a conversation about what you want to work on, yes, but also information about your past, your family, and it'll help inform our goals and how we approach them and how we're going to work towards those goals. But it's going to be conversation based, nothing high stakes. But we'll be starting to get into the nitty gritties of why you came here, of why you sought out my support. But I really appreciate your time, Nina. And I look forward to working together.
Thank you, Marisol.
Yay. Okay. Let me